Okay, let's dive right in. We've all, heard these kinds of narratives before, haven't we? A system appears, and it's billed as totally revolutionary.
Hmm.
Something that promises to change not just, say, how we work or shop, but maybe even how we think about things fundamentally.
Right, the big paradigm shift idea.
Exactly. And today, that's what we're exploring. We're digging into the materials surrounding Ash Mufareh, who's the founder and CEO of On Passive Technologies.
And specifically, this huge digital ecosystem he's built.
Yes, precisely. But here's the critical angle for our deep dive. It's not just about the tech specs. We really need to analyze the philosophy behind why the source materials insist, almost demand, that users study the system so intensely.
Yeah, the sources definitely set the stakes high from the get-go. This isn't pitched as just another software suite or a set of tools for your business.
No.
No, it's repeatedly described using these really expansive terms. Things like a classroom for global growth or a university of transformation, even a training ground for the future of digital intelligence.
Wow, okay. So it immediately frames the user very differently, not just a customer clicking buttons.
Exactly. You're positioned as a student, a learner.
That distinction feels really key, user versus student, because the materials, they really hammer home this core idea, this mandate,
They
right?
do. They state quite plainly that studying this system, well, it's not a choice, it's a calling.
A calling, that's strong language, especially for anyone, any founder looking for real empowerment, real leadership in, let's face it, a world increasingly driven by AI.
Hmm.
So we really have to unpack what this calling to study actually involves. What does it look like day to day? And crucially, what are the big promises? What benefits are supposed to come from putting in that kind of deep intellectual effort?
And it's interesting how they package that commitment, especially for you, the listener, the learner. The promise is efficiency.
Efficiency in learning.
Yeah. According to these documents, the whole system is structured to deliver really deep knowledge, but quickly, thoroughly, almost like a shortcut to becoming highly informed. The clear intention seems to be shifting people away from being just passive users of digital stuff.
Yeah.
You know, clicking links, consuming content.
Right, the standard online experience.
Exactly, and transforming them into active, informed learners. People who aren't just using the system, but are capable enough to actually lead others through these pretty complex AI environments.
So our goal today is to explore exactly how that transformation is supposed to happen according to these sources.
Right. What's the mechanism? What's the philosophy driving it?
Okay, let's start right at the foundation then, because before we even get into specific apps or features, it feels like we need to grasp the philosophical bedrock here. This isn't just about code. There's a very intentional, almost spiritual layer being presented.
That's absolutely right. You have to understand the context they're creating first. The ecosystem is presented quite boldly as the creator of a new digital order.
A new digital order.
Yes, and the source material explicitly attributes the creation of this order to the wisdom and divine inspiration of Ash Mufareh.
Okay, wisdom and divine inspiration. That's a significant claim for a tech platform.
It really is. It's a very deliberate rhetorical choice. It immediately lifts the whole venture out of the realm of just, standard business or commerce.
And puts it somewhere else entirely.
Right. Into a realm of sort of preordained, structured transformation. It suggests this isn't just driven by market forces or competition. It's purpose-driven, maybe even destiny-driven from their perspective.
That's a fascinating framing because when you associate technology with divine guidance, it implies a certain level of, well, perfection maybe, inevitability, something beyond what regular software updates claim.
Exactly.
So how do the source materials back this up? What is it about the system's actual architecture, its structure, that's supposed to reflect this higher guidance?
The documents really emphasize that this isn't just a random jumble of applications thrown together. They talk about something called architectural intelligence.
Architectural intelligence, okay.
The core claim is that every single layer, every function, from, say, basic AI automation features all the way up to complex stuff like the OKYC verification.
OKYC being online know your customer.
Correct. That all of it mirrors what they call a divine order. And this order, they specify, is based on 4 key elements, 4 pillars, if you like.
Which are?
Structure, balance, purpose, and perfection. Those 4. Non-negotiable, it seems.
Okay, let's pause on those four for a second because they seem crucial to how a user is meant to perceive and interact with the system. What does structure mean in this context? How does it manifest in the technology?
Structure in this framework seems to mean that everything has its designated place and function. It's the opposite of, just adding features randomly or bolting things on later.
Right, like integrated design.
Precisely. It suggests this deep interconnectedness, where if you misunderstand or ignore one part of the system, the whole thing potentially suffers, or at least your experience of it does. So for the founder, studying the structure means understanding that chain of connection, how, say, OMail links to Odesk, and how that might feed data into the financial reporting, and so on.
Okay, so knowing the structure prevents you from just using tools in isolation. You see the bigger picture.
That's the idea. It stops you operating in silos.
Got it. What about balance? That sounds a bit more abstract for a tech system. How does an ecosystem achieve balance in, the pretty cutthroat digital world?
Balance, as described in materials, seems to be about finding the perfect equilibrium between, for example, how much is automated versus how much requires human oversight, or between robust security and making things easy to access and use.
A classic tension.
Absolutely. The system is presented as being designed to manage resources, time, and the flow of data in a way that's inherently harmonious. And interestingly, if a user feels things are out of balance or they feel overwhelmed, the implication in the source material is
That the user hasn't studied it enough.
exactly. They haven't studied the system well enough to perceive or leverage the equilibrium that's supposedly already built into the AI algorithms and the overall design.
So the balance is inherent in the design, and understanding comes from aligning with it, not trying to force it.
Yeah.
Okay. That leads us to purpose. If this whole thing is divinely inspired, what is its ultimate stated purpose?
The purpose is described very holistically. It's about empowerment, total empowerment. Every tool, every automated process must serve this bigger goal of elevating the founder, first individually and then collectively contributing to global society.
So it's not just about sales or efficiency for their own sake.
Apparently not. The sources argue it's not just about, say, making money, but about providing sustainable wealth, stability, opportunity. So when a founder studies a specific product, like OWallet for instance, they're not just learning a tool, they're supposedly aligning their personal goals with the system's inherent, larger purpose of global empowerment.
Aligning personal goals with the system's purpose. Okay, and the last one. Perfection. That's a huge claim for any digital product, isn't it? Prone to bugs, updates.
It is a very bold claim. But perfection, as defined in these sources, isn't necessarily about being completely free of errors, like zero bugs ever.
Oh. How is it defined then?
It seems to be defined more as complete, unwavering functionality toward that stated purpose we just discussed. The architectural intelligence, guided by this divine order, means the system is built to fulfill its core mandate without compromise.
So the implication for the user studying it is
To recognize this kind of flawless integration of all the components working towards that goal. It sets up a situation where if a process seems to fail for a particular user, the failure isn't attributed to a flaw in the system's fundamental architecture.
but rather to the user's lack of knowledge, their inability to correctly interface with the perfect structure.
That seems to be the direct implication, yes.
Yeah.
The onus is on the user to study and understand the perfection that's already there.
Okay, this is where the philosophical framing really starts to have profound implications for the user experience, isn't it? The material explicitly states that studying the system means you witness the intersection between human genius and divine guidance. That's way beyond just learning software.
Absolutely. It deliberately pushes the whole conversation beyond just technology, beyond features and benefits, and into this realm of revelation. Yes. By understanding how the system supposedly integrates data flawlessly, automates complex tasks seamlessly, protects privacy through these sophisticated layers. The user isn't just meant to gain technical skill. They're supposed to achieve a kind of philosophical breakthrough, to grasp a greater purpose.
And what is that ultimate greater purpose, according to the sources? Why does this digital system claim such global significance?
The material frames that ultimate purpose as nothing less than bringing order, clarity, and progress to a world once ruled by chaos and inequality.
Wow, so the technology itself is positioned as the tool, the mechanism for fixing society's problems on a massive scale.
That's the narrative, a definitive mechanism for large-scale societal correction. And the founder, by mastering these tools through dedicated study, isn't just building their own business. They become an active agent in fulfilling this global mandate. They're hoping to fix the flaws of older, supposedly chaotic and unequal digital ways of doing things.
This is incredibly compelling framing. It effectively transforms what might otherwise be seen as just mandatory training into participation in a higher cause, a mission.
Precisely.
And that brings us neatly to that spiritual framing you mentioned earlier from Section 10 of the source materials, where studying the system is explicitly called an act of gratitude, even a form of worship for the vision and the effort behind it.
Yes, this is perhaps the most strategically potent claim from a motivational standpoint. It creates an incredibly powerful incentive structure that goes way beyond simple financial rewards.
How so? What does framing study as worship or gratitude actually do in terms of user behavior, retention, compliance?
Well, it massively solidifies commitment and loyalty. Think about it. If not studying or not complying with the system's methods means you're not just risking lower earnings, but you're actually failing to align with this divine blueprint.
You're disrupting the perceived order.
Exactly. You're potentially disrupting this universal order.
Yeah.
The psychological pressure to study, conform, and participate fully becomes enormous. It makes the required learning not just beneficial, but a mandatory act of philosophical alignment. It's presented as necessary for success, for community acceptance, maybe even for fulfilling your personal destiny within this framework.
And it intrinsically links the system's success and the user's success to the vision of the founder, Ash Mufareh. Gratitude becomes almost a prerequisite for making progress.
That's certainly how it's framed. Your alignment with the vision, expressed through study and gratitude, becomes part of the engine of success.
Okay, so that's the deep philosophical architecture. Now let's pivot. How does this heaven's blueprint, as they call it, translate into practical day-to-day mastery for the founder who's now operating with this sense of mandated purpose? What's the payoff on the ground?
Right, let's shift gears into that practical path to mastery. Section 1 in the materials really hammers this point. Knowledge is the foundation of power. The system, it insists, is designed for and requires active learners. Passive users, the sources suggest, simply cannot fulfill the system's grand purpose. They might use a feature here or there.
But they won't get the big picture, the integrated success.
Precisely. They won't achieve that interconnected, almost exponential success that's promised to those who truly understand the whole ecosystem.
And this power, this capability, it's not immediately obvious. The sources mention that every application, every feature, even the AI integrations, they all carry a hidden lesson.
Yes, that's a really important distinction they make. The required knowledge isn't just about knowing which button to click. It's about understanding the underlying principles, maybe even the AI logic behind the interface.
Ah, okay. Deeper than a user manual.
Much deeper. It's this understanding of the technical and strategic integration that supposedly unlocks true capability, which in turn breeds opportunity. The core message is pretty stark, actually. When you know how a system works, you don't just follow it, you lead others through it.
So the knowledgeable founder becomes indispensable. They become the guide for others who haven't put in the same level of study.
That's the implication. You become a leader by default, simply by understanding the map.
This really highlights that contrast they draw between the old world approach, just focusing on the end result, and what they call the new world approach in Section 2, which is all about mastering the processes.
Exactly. The old way, as they frame it, was purely outcome-based. I need to make X amount of money, so I just need to figure out how to sell Y units of this product. Push for the result.
Right.
The new paradigm, as articulated in these materials, demands something different. It demands mastering the underlying mechanisms, the engines that generate those outcomes, often automatically through AI.
So you need to understand the gears to really control the machine, not just push the on button?
That's a good way to put it. The goal isn't just to achieve the outcome once, but to make the process so well understood and optimized through study that the desired outcome becomes almost inevitable, repeatable, scalable.
Let's make this really concrete for listeners. The source material gives specific examples using their product suite. How does studying a particular tool supposedly lead to expertise in a much broader field?
Yeah, they draw these direct lines from specific product knowledge to broader mastery. It's quite systematic.
Okay, walk us through a few.
All right. First, they say studying O-Wallet, their digital finance tool, leads directly to the mastery of digital finance.
Which means more than just knowing how to check your balance, presumably.
Oh, definitely. It implies understanding the whole mechanism,
Yeah.
how commissions flow through the system, the security protocols that govern the digital ledger, the implications of instant, possibly decentralized transactions. It's about becoming fluent in the system's specific financial language and architecture.
Okay. What about OConnect? That's their communication platform, right?
Yes, video conferencing, webinars, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
Exploring OConnect, they claim, leads to the mastery of global communication.
Global communication
I know.
mastery.
Well, the implication is that by studying its features, things like custom branding, high-def video, maybe integrated translation capabilities, you're not just learning the tool, you're mastering communication strategy. You're learning how to connect effectively, professionally, across huge geographical distances and cultural differences using this specific platform.
Okay, so the tool enables the strategy, but you need to study the tool to unlock that strategic potential. Makes sense. What about O-Verify? You mentioned the OKYC aspect.
Right. Engaging deeply with O-Verify, the sources say, leads to the mastery of trust and data protection.
Which is huge today, obviously.
Absolutely critical. In a world full of scams, identity theft, data breaches, understanding the multi-layered system they've built to verify user identity and protect data becomes paramount. So mastering O-Verify isn't just about compliance. It's about gaining deep confidence in the security and integrity of every transaction and interaction within the ecosystem.
Got it. And one more OShop, their e-commerce platform.
Yes, their AI-driven commerce platform. Using OShop, they promise, leads to the mastery of AI-driven commerce.
Which is different from just regular e-commerce. How?
It goes way beyond just listing products online. Mastery here, as described, means understanding how the AI works behind the scenes, how it predicts trends, personalizes the shopping experience for customers, maybe manages inventory automatically, optimizes the entire sales funnel using data. It's about learning to effectively command a largely autonomous retail engine powered by AI.
So in each case, studying the tool provides mastery of the domain that tool operates in. Finance, communication, trust, commerce.
Exactly. And the material sums it up with that simple analogy you mentioned earlier. The whole on-passive system is like a treasure chest.
Right.
But knowledge is the key to unlocking the door of each specific product, each compartment within that chest. You can't just force it open. You need the intellectual key, obtained through study, to access the value inside each part.
Which implies the path is very intentional. You don't just accidentally stumble upon success within the system. You have to acquire the specific codified knowledge.
That seems to be the core message.
And that intentional study, that acquired knowledge, is what creates direction and focus. That's the theme of Section 4, isn't it?
Yes, the emphasis shifts there to clarity. The system, they claim, is built as a map, not a maze.
Okay, map versus maze. What's the distinction they're drawing?
Well, think about the typical modern digital landscape, right? Endless apps, constant updates, competing platforms. It often feels like a confusing, overwhelming maze, maybe even designed to keep you slightly lost, clicking around, trying things out.
Yeah, you can definitely feel that way sometimes, lost in the options.
But a map, by its very nature, is different. It's designed to guide you, to show you the clear path from point A to point B towards a specific destination.
So the claim is that OnPassive, if studied properly, provides that clear path.
Precisely. For the founder who studies the map, the promise is they will never be lost. They transition from that initial state of confusion, which is common with any powerful new technology, into a state of, well, unshakable confidence.
Confidence in what, specifically?
Confidence in knowing exactly where to click, where to build, how to earn, and how to lead within this specific ecosystem. It's the practical payoff of understanding that philosophical structure we talked about earlier. The map reveals the structure.
And this practical confidence, born from study, is what ultimately separates the followers from the leaders within the system. It ties right back to that quote from Ash Mufareh that the sources feature.
The one about learning in the present.
Yeah. You cannot lead in the future if you are not learning in the present.
That quote really functions as the ultimate justification for making this study philosophy mandatory, doesn't it? It reframes learning not as something extra you do if you have time, but as the absolute essential prerequisite for having any influence or leadership role going forward, at least within this context.
So the sources are basically proposing that this deep, directed study can transform even an ordinary user into a digital visionary purely because of the clarity and focus it provides.
That seems to be the claim. You're being trained, through study, to operate flawlessly within their vision of the new digital order.
Okay, so we've laid out the philosophical grounding and the individual journey towards mastery through study. Now, let's get into the major functional pillars of the ecosystem itself, the big operational areas where study really unlocks tangible power. Automation, security, and this idea of global unity.
Sounds good. Let's start with automation, which is covered in Section 6. The sources make a pretty dramatic claim here. Studying automation leads to liberation.
Liberation. That's a powerful word, especially when you think about how much digital work can feel like being chained to a screen, constantly busy.
Exactly. And the mechanism for this promised liberation is described as a transfer of burden
Transferring the burden
from the human founder to the intelligent AI systems.
Yeah.
The system is designed supposedly to take over the repetitive, the tedious, the error-prone tasks, freeing up the human. But crucially, the founder has to study the automation processes to truly understand, appreciate, and fully utilize this transfer. You can't benefit from what you don't understand.
Right, so you need specifics. Which products are highlighted as driving this automation-led liberation?
The source material specifically calls out Odesk, OTracker, and OMail as core examples.
Okay, let's take Odesk. What does studying its automation unlock?
Odesk is presented as their comprehensive platform for admin, project management, maybe team collaboration. Studying Odesk's automation, therefore, means understanding how to effectively offload things like scheduling meetings, assigning tasks, tracking progress, sending follow-up reminders, all that admin overhead, letting the AI handle it seamlessly.
So the human founder can step back and focus on higher-level stuff, strategy, leadership.
That's the idea. You stop being the project manager and become the strategic director because the AI is managing the minutia based on the parameters you set after studying how it works.
Okay, and OTracker, what burden does that lift?
OTracker deals with the complex, often time-consuming world of performance metrics, analytics, tracking results. We all know how much time can be sunk into manually pulling data, creating reports.
Definitely, spreadsheets galore.
Right. So by studying OTracker's automation, the founder supposedly reclaims all that time. The AI does the tracking, the data aggregation, the reporting, maybe even surfaces key insights automatically. The promise is that you can multiply productivity without multiplying effort because the AI handles the analytical heavy lifting.
Makes sense. Now, OMail. Email is such a universal pain point. How does studying OMail automation offer liberation beyond just a better spam filter?
Well, according to the sources, OMail incorporates more advanced AI features. Things like intelligent sorting that goes beyond basic filters, automatic prioritization of important messages, maybe even AI-assisted response generation for common inquiries.
Ah, okay. So AI helping you draft replies.
Potentially, or at least handling standard compliant responses. Studying this automation means the founder learns how to bypass the typical information overload that swamps most inboxes and kills productivity. It's about letting the AI manage the flow, surface what's critical, and handle the routine, freeing up your cognitive bandwidth.
So looking at the bigger picture across these tools, the ultimate benefit of studying automation is really about mastering time management and achieving scalability, isn't it?
Absolutely. The system effectively promises to give you back your most precious, non-renewable resource time. And that, the sources argue, leads not just to freedom in a practical sense, but also to genuine peace of mind. Less stress, more focus.
Okay, that covers automation. Let's move to the next pillar, digital security. Section 7 addresses this, and in an AI world, security is obviously a non-negotiable.
Critically important. And the source material emphasizes that the ecosystem introduces what they term trust technology. It's specifically designed, they say, to combat the rising tide of online scams, fraud, and cyber threats.
Trust technology. Okay.
But here's the key part linked to our theme. They state that only those who study it can truly appreciate its brilliance.
Implying the security is sophisticated, maybe layered, and you need the education to fully grasp and leverage it, not just assume it's working.
It seems to be exactly the point.
Yeah.
It's not just on, you need to understand how it protects you.
So what specific security mechanisms are highlighted as requiring this mandatory study and appreciation?
The focus in the material seems to be heavily on two key systems. One is the advanced O-Verify system, that online Know Your Customer platform we mentioned.
Right.
And the other is something called the O-Virtual Gateway. These two are presented as representing the highest standards of digital protection within the on-passive world.
Okay, let's clarify the study needed for O-Verify. What does understanding OKYC truly entail beyond just knowing people are verified?
Studying O-Verify, according to the sources, requires understanding the specific global compliance standards it meets and the precise multi-factor authentication methods being used. It's about internalizing the level of security being applied.
So you can operate with confidence.
Yes, so the founder can engage in transactions, potentially internationally, with absolute assurance. Understanding the OKYC operations means recognizing that every participant, every transaction partner within the system has theoretically been verified to this high standard, which drastically reduces counterparty risk. You know who you're dealing with, digitally speaking.
Okay. And the O virtual gateway, what's its role?
The O Virtual Gateway sounds like the secure entry point and transaction channel for the entire ecosystem, like a protected tunnel. Studying this would mean understanding how the system encrypts data, how it routes traffic securely, how it creates a kind of shield against external attacks trying to get in,
So again, it's about moving beyond just hoping you're secure.
to knowing exactly how the system is designed to keep you secure. It's about understanding the mechanics of the protection.
And the psychological payoff of gaining this security knowledge seems pretty significant. The source material claims the more you understand, the less you fear. The more you study, the more you trust, not just the system, but yourself.
Right. It suggests that study builds this inherent digital confidence. It's not just about trusting on passive, it's about trusting your own ability to operate safely within it because you understand the safeguards.
It replaces blind faith, which can be shaky, with informed assurance.
Exactly. You're no longer just a potential target hoping the walls hold.
Yeah.
You're an informed operator who understands the fortress design. And that level of trust, that assurance, is presented as foundational for building anything substantial, especially on a global scale.
Which brings us quite naturally to the third pillar, global unity. Section 5 talks about how education, this mandatory study, actively builds unity and collaboration across the user base.
Yes, this is a really interesting community building aspect. The source material consistently avoids portraying on passive as just a company. Instead, it uses terms like a global family.
A family.
And the strength of this family, its cohesion, is explicitly rooted in shared understanding, achieved through study.
How does that work in practice across potentially vast cultural and geographical divides?
It's positioned as a powerful unifying force. When founders from all over the world, the sources mention places like Kenya, India, Dubai, the US, are all engaged in the same study program, learning the same system, the same principles, the same terminology.
You're not speaking the same language.
Precisely. They begin to speak one language, the language of digital empowerment, as the source puts it. This shared technical and philosophical vocabulary becomes crucial. It helps eliminate the kind of regional misunderstandings or confusion that can easily arise about how tools work, how compensation functions, or what the overall mission is.
So everyone is on the same page, literally reading from the same study materials.
Effectively, yes. And this unified knowledge base, cultivated through mandatory study, is presented as the essential ingredient that transforms the whole thing. It's what elevates on passive in their narrative from just being a collection of software products used by scattered individuals.
Into something more cohesive.
Into a global movement. A movement built on shared knowledge, shared processes, systematic success, and a common understanding of this digital order. It's the unity required, they argue, to actually achieve that grand vision, that heaven's blueprint for global transformation we discussed earlier.
That makes sense. You need a unified base to drive a unified mission. Okay, that shared vision and unified knowledge really sets the stage perfectly for looking towards the future within this philosophy. Let's get into those final phases. How this mandatory study supposedly prepares founders for leadership in an AI-dominated world, and how it connects to building lasting financial structures.
Right, we move now into the vision for the future, starting with the human-AI partnership. This is detailed in Section 8, and it's a really critical framing for anyone thinking about leadership today.
How so? What's the core message about AI?
The message is consistently positive and collaborative. AI is presented explicitly as a friend, not a threat. And maybe even more importantly, as an essential partner, not as a replacement for human skills like intellect or empathy.
That's a very deliberate counter-narrative to the common fear, isn't it? The whole AI is coming for our jobs, anxiety.
Absolutely deliberate. It aims to reframe AI from a source of fear into a source of leverage. And the required study is positioned as the key to unlocking that positive relationship.
How does studying the system facilitate this partnership mindset?
Well, the study requires the founder to go beyond just using the AI tools. They need to analyze how these AI systems think, how they learn, adapt, respond to changing market data or user inputs.
So you're studying the AI's behavior.
In a sense, yes. And this type of analysis, the sources suggest, teaches you how to collaborate effectively with a non-human intelligence. You learn what tasks are best delegated to the AI, things requiring immense data processing, pattern recognition, tireless repetition, while you, the human, retain and focus on the intrinsically human strengths: creativity, strategic vision, ethical judgment, empathy.
So the study is effectively a course in how to manage and collaborate with a superintelligent digital assistant or partner.
That's a very good way to put it. And the conclusion drawn is that the founders who embrace this study, who learn to work with the AI, are the ones destined to lead in the future. They learn to use AI not just as a tool like a hammer, but as something more dynamic. The source uses the